welcome back to Master Guitar, where we will talk about mastering the guitar. Today we're going to talk about music theory. This one's going to be kind of long, so you'll probably need your guitar with you and probably about 2 cups of coffee. Is this one going to be about 30 minutes long? Yeah, it is. Should it probably be about an hour and a half long? Oh, yes, it is. If you were to take this in Berklee School of Music, this would probably be an entire week's worth, if not a semester's worth of lessons just on the circle of fifths, because this is the alphabet that puts music together. Funny thing is, you've already been playing it. As I've said before, music theory is kind of like an inside language that, you know, the guild speaks and all the outsiders listen to and go, what? So music theory is no different. So when you're teaching yourself, you lose out on a lot of this. So what is circle of fifths? Circle of fifths is the music that, it is the alphabet that makes music go. So what I'm going to do is I got a music stand over here to make sure I'm not forgetting anything. But basically what it is we're going to start out with a C major scale. You've already learned the C major. So fret numbers, this is 6th string 8, 10, 12. On the 5th string 8, 10, 12. Now on the 4th string it's 9, 10, 12. Now on the 3rd string, 9, 10, 12. On the 2nd string, 10, 12, 13. And on the 1st string, this is kind of a bonus at this point, because with the 3-note per string sequence we're using, we're actually ending up with 3 extra notes going into the next interval of the scale. So it's 10, 12, 13. This pick is too light. I was playing with this earlier. It's a standard Fender Heavy. I was playing with this thing earlier and oh my goodness, I was gripping it. I could feel the pick flexing around my finger, because when I'm really playing, I mean, I am forcing that thing down and it is just curving around my fingers. So let's go over what these notes are, just so you understand, because we're going to be dealing with a lot of, I'm going to have to put up, you know, just like with my coffee talks where I've got the drop down stuff over here and here. So anyway, C, D, E, and then you got what comes after E? F, F, G, A, and then B, C. So C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. This gets important. This isn't like where someone tells you that and you go, oh, what frets is it? You know, just cut to the chase. What do I play on the fretboard? You got to start thinking of this stuff now, because this is all a mental lesson. And I thought about doing this as a coffee talk, but the need to sit down and play this so you can hear some of this, it gets crucial. So, all right. So we talked about this in another lesson, and just a review. I'll probably put a link somewhere, you know, up here, the standard thing. So it's C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. It's no sharps, no flats. So the first of the scale, C, remember we talked about the first note of the scale, we call it the first. So just 1. When you're seeing it written down, it's 1, capital letter. Anything that is a major chord gets written with a capital Roman numeral. 1, 4, 5. Those are your 3 major chords within any scale. 1, 4, 5. Your minor chords within the scale are 2, 3, 6. And then you've got the 7 is a half diminished, and it is perfectly acceptable to use a full diminished there instead of a half diminished. And when you go through it, each one repeats every 3 frets. That's just another inversion of it. So if I take this chord right here, I can put this right there. And then here. And then here. And it just keeps repeating. Maybe I got a little bit too much delay in there. You're going to have to pause and try to figure out, you know, where things were when I'm talking about them. So, because I got to get right down to this. So, C major scale. The first chord is a C major. Then you go to F major. Sorry, it's the. Did I mention it's 52 degrees out here and it's freezing? So I'm going to have to stop and get some coffee a couple times throughout this. And then G is your other major chord. That's 1, 4, 5. And so we have also 2 minor, which is D in this case, D minor. I had this thing tuned up inside and it's kind of playing with my mind out here. If you have the little Fender tuning app on your smartphone, you get the little ding that tells you it's in tune. And of course I don't have it here with me, but alright, so D minor, this is your second minor. This is 3 minor, the E minor here. And the last is your relative minor or A minor. So, all of these chords work together, and then of course B half diminished. Which, as I mentioned, just repeats every 3 frets. Alright, those chords all work together. So, here's the entire scale in complete. So it's one major, in this case C. D minor is your 2 minor. E minor is your 3 minor. F major is your 4 major, major 4, or perfect 4th. Then there is a G major is your perfect 5th, or major 5th. A minor is your relative minor or minor 6th. And then you got the B diminished is your diminished 7th. Alright, there it is. Those all work together. Now the great thing is when I change the value of the scale, all the chord values stay the same. Let me explain that in easier to understand words. 1 is always major, 2 is always minor, 3 is always minor, 4 is always major, 5 is always major, 6 is always minor, and 7 is always diminished. It changes as we start getting into extended chords. So when we get to the 5th, for instance, the 5th is sometimes done in certain genres of music as a dominant 7th. So here would be a G major 7. Nice dissonant little sound. This is where you start playing with people's emotions, because if I'm playing G, I produce a small amount of dissonance. The dissonance there, by diminishing a half step, creates what we call a darker tone. The more minor you make something, the darker we call the tone color. Big warning right here. I joined an online Christian guitar forum a few years back, and I started talking about light to dark leading tendencies, and everybody flipped out because they had never heard this before. I am not responsible for your lack of music education. I do not care if you have never studied advanced harmony. If you start getting into the more advanced textbooks, we're talking master level Berklee School of Music classes, not the average stuff that some guy that can barely play 4th and 5th chords is going to know. We're going beyond music theory into what's called advanced harmony. Advanced harmony is where we start talking about leading tones, and we start talking about leading tendencies. Certain chords want to go to certain other chords. I'm going to break it down for you and give it to you as simply as possible, because this stuff gets really weird and really esoteric, and if you've never studied this and you dismiss it out of hand, that's on you. I try never to criticize other guitar players. I've just noticed that sometimes when I'm talking to other musicians and they don't understand what I'm talking about, it's because they didn't do the due diligence to learn. And if this upsets you, I'm sorry. But that's why you're here, is you're doing the due diligence to learn. So, props to you. Let's go on and move from there. Alright, so when we go to G major, the G major is the next in your sequence of the circle of fifths. Here's the famous phrase. Fat cats go down alleys eating bugs. Why? Because those are the sequences of the sharps. Remember the diminished chord I gave you? What was it in the key of C? It was a B, right? So, when we go to G, what note's that? It was an F, or F sharp. That's our first sharp note, fat. When we get to the next one, which is D, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D, fat cats. Write this down. I'm going to be putting the graphics up like I said. Next one is A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, fat cats go. The circle of fifths goes this entire way. Fat cats go down alleys eating bugs. In some jazz trios, they actually used to use hand signs, to tell you what the next song would be. Hand sign would be, okay, we're going to play this one. This is, pick a jazz standard, I don't know, Satin Doll or whatever. And they would just go, okay. And everyone else knew what song it was because it was 3 flats. If they said 2 sharps, you knew what the key was, and then you knew what song was coming up. So in this case, we're to do G major, 1. 1 sharp means fat sharp, fat F sharp. G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. So G major, A minor, B minor, C, D. What in the world? Guitar's going out of tune as I'm playing it. So we're in G major, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Next one is D, D, E minor, F sharp minor, G, A. So that would be B. Again, there's only 3 diminished chords. They just repeat over and over and over again. And any of the notes in that diminished chord here is this one right here, this one right here, and it's 4 different diminished chords. It's all played with the same finger pattern. So this is F sharp diminished. This is also C sharp diminished. I need way more coffee. All right, next is Cats Go Down Alleys is the next one. So we're in A major. A major has how many sharps? So remember, we're starting with go. What does the race start with? Go! So G, D, A. 3 sharps. So what are they? Fat cats go. Huh? Seeing the pattern here? So go down alleys. A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A. There. So all you got to do is find the G sharp within a diminished chord and just play that diminished chord shape right there. Or we could play it up here because it's the same thing. And then back to A. So when you hear that, something entirely as satisfying, except that it sounds too much like a Mel Bay lesson. The sun's going behind the clouds and my studio is getting very dark. I really should bring out my lights. I just don't like to because it takes... Did you see the video where I showed how when I set up the backdrop, why I don't always use my backdrop? It's because it takes 38 to 40 minutes. I think it takes 45 minutes to set up my studio with this green screen. It takes 35 minutes to take it down. So when you put all that together, it's an hour and 15 minutes putting up and taking down and setting up. So if this is too dark, I apologize. As you can see, my guitar is going out of tune as we speak, which means the temperature is probably dropping, which is not what I want right now. Okay, so we did Cats Go Down Alleys. Next one is Eating. We're in 4 sharps on the key of E. So E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B, C sharp, D sharp, E. Once a note gets a sharp, it's like it's flipping on a switch. Like, you know, if I've got one of these on, there you go. Once it gets sharped anywhere within the scale, it's like an indicator switch. Flip that on, it stays on until the circle of fifths is done. So your entire circle of fifths is cats go down alleys, eating bugs, fat sharp, cat sharp. The circle of the seventh tones that take the diminished is fat cats go down alleys, eating bugs. Memorize that. So this one's going to be a little, please put questions down in the comments, and I will put up a follow-up video where I'm answering the questions in this one, because this one gets really tough if you don't understand it. So let's talk about the relative minor. We talked about this in other videos, and it becomes important in that, where do I play a guitar solo? Okay, if your chords are just going to the key of G, G, C, D. Oh my goodness, this guitar is going out of tune. I may have to grab my Strat. The first chord you hear is almost always your key signature, which scale it is. So when you're looking at sheet music and you see it's got treble clef, 1 sharp on it, and 4/4 time or 3/4 time or 6/8 time or whatever it is, usually 4/4, that 1 sharp there, don't think of that as, now I got to remember whenever I see an F I have to play a sharp. Just play a G major scale. That's it. Every note you play will be right. And if you play the chords G major, A minor, B minor, C major, D major, E minor, F sharp diminished, every chord you play will be right. I guarantee it. If you play only using those chords, unless there's a modulation in there where it goes to a different key signature, every chord you play will be right. And usually the modulation will change going right to the first note of the next key signature and then back. Not always the case, but most of the time, yes. If you're going to start doing jazz, you got a lot of study ahead of you. All right, so the first chord you hear is usually going to be G in a G major scale. Then it's going to be C and D, and then one of the minors. The most usual minor there is going to be the relative minor, which is E. Your sixth is your relative minor. Remember, 6 is shorthand for 6th note of the scale. G, C, D, E minor. That's a chord progression. That's one chord progression. That would be 1, 4, 5, 6 minor. Now if we wanted to have 2 minor, that would be G, A minor, C, D. Here's where we get into the advanced harmony chord leading tendencies. Light to dark movement. You may not have heard all these. If you've never studied Joe Diorio intervallic design, if you've never looked into Ted Green's chord chemistry, and they're only hinting at this stuff, you really have to go and get the Berkeley textbooks. I remember a friend of mine got them back in the 80s, and we were working in a restaurant together. That was my friend Larry from Texas. Had a strong Texas accent. Larry and I would literally be cooking orders. He'd call out the wheel to me, telling me what the food order was. I'd be prepping it on the other grill, and we would be discussing and talking about music theory. We got a waiter at this restaurant who was in the Navy band, and he was just doing it to get extra money. He literally was coming up and giving us pointers. Listen to what we're talking about. Come up and give us a pointer, one little bit of information, go off and serve the order. This is how I learned music theory. Cooking. So if I can learn it while prepping up a mushroom burger with Swiss, you certainly can do it watching this video with your guitar in your hand. What I'm really going to recommend you do, write out your circle of fifths. Just create a block and it's going to have 8 columns, or 7 columns if you just want to keep it simple. And you're just going to put 1, 2 minor, 3 minor, 4, 5, 6 minor, 7. And then put C major across all the way. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. It'll fill it out, just 7 columns. And it's going to go like this in one row. The next row is going to be G major, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, sharp, G. The next one is going to be D major, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D. It's got 2 sharps. The next one's going to have 3 sharps. A major, A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp. After that is E. So it's going to just write down cats go down alleys eating bugs, fat sharp, cat sharp in your row. You know, down that first column in your rows. Fill it out. Do this 25 times. You're going to have this thing memorized. So the question is, where do I solo? That's your relative minor. So in the key of C, it's going to be A minor. I should also have a video up at some point where I show you guys how to stand on stage. Most people have no idea about angles and such. Literally, I found it got more reaction out of the audience. I just lost my fluffy off my microphone. Got more reaction out of the audience when I began to find certain specific angles to stand at. You do this and crank the guitar like that. More impressive than just sitting there going. Remember, you're performing. Performing means there's a performance. Stand there and anyone who says, "I don't want to have to get involved in all that," yeah, that went out the window when Elvis Presley came out. All right? That went out the window when Chuck Berry came out. When Chuck Berry did the duck walk on stage, oh, forget it. Just standing there and playing in a tuxedo and looking bored, or that's for the birds. You notice when you see me doing my videos, I'm usually involved in some kind of a, because it's been, you know, a lifelong habit. So 6 is your relative minor. That is going to be a fairly medium tone. Now I rate the chords in this way when it comes to leading tendencies. If you can find any of the Berklee textbooks, you're going to see roughly a similar manner. They're going to list it by, when you write out your grid, stare at it, because the answer is right in front of you the whole time. Your 7 is your darkest tone because it's the first one to get a sharp. Next one is going to be the 3rd, because once you flip that one cycle in fourths ahead, the cycle of fifths ahead, cats becomes go. So G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. That B is sitting in your 3. So that's darkest, you know, dark 4. Darkest is 7, dark 4 is your 3. Next comes dark 3, that's your 6. That's the next one. So that B that was sharped in C, it moves to 3 in the G. G, A, B. Count it out on your fingers. C, D, E, F, G, A, B. That's the 7th. Where is B in the next one? The 3rd. Where is it in the following when you flip it one forward in the circle of fifths? It's going to go to your 6th. Then it's going to move to the 2nd, and when you go 1/4 ahead. These are the patterns of darkest to light in your minor chords. So diminished chord, your B diminished. Now when we move that to a minor, which is what it would be when you move to your next cycle of fifths, when you move it ahead to in your circle of fifths, one more, it's going to turn into your like I said, your 3 minor. So G, A minor, B minor, C, D. So this, your 3 minor is not as dark as your 7 minor, but it's in relation to the movements within the chords. Here, let me kick off the distortion so we can hear. All right. So G to B sounds darkish. Next it's going to be D to B. That's not as dark sounding. You have to play with this to hear it, and this requires a lot of repetition on that. Okay, then A puts B minor. It's lighter now because it's moved to the 2nd. So 7th is your darkest tone, 3 is next, then 6, then 2. When B first takes its role as a major, it's within the E scale. So once it goes from 2 minor, your brightest minor, it's going to go to 5 in the next scale. So that's your darkest of your major chords is the 5. So hear literally listen to it ring. Let's try going from E to A. Hear how that's a lighter tone? You're making a lighter switch. So 5 is the darkest of your major tones. Then it's going to go to the 1. Surprise, the brightest tone you have is not 1, the key signature, it's actually 4. Do you know why? Because that is flipping the circle of fifths around to the circle of fourths. Ah! So, not going to go into all that right away. You've got a lot to chew on in this one. This one has to be played over and over again. Watch it over and over again. Have your guitar in your hands. Play along with this. Helps if you play clean. Listen to the notes in the chord, how they interact with one another. Listen to the tendency. As you play it a lot, you're going to find that, like for instance, if I take G, C, D, and B minor, okay, that's a darker tone than if I did it A minor. Kimchi's at my feet. Play with it. Play with it. Listen to which ones make the song darker in tone, sadder. I don't care if you want to say sadder, if you want to say more melodic, if you want to say darker, it doesn't matter. Brighter is when you're playing from 4 to 1 to 5. Feeling happy. Hear how strong that is? It's sounds done. Sounds bright. It sounds finished. Hello, Kimmy. He's such a good boy. I'm so glad he hasn't been in here with me in a while while I've been playing. Hi, Kimmy. All right, that is a lot of information, and you're going to need to play with this. Next time we're going to get into top chord progressions if you're looking for a particular sound, and we'll get to that one right now. All right, we'll see ya. Comment, like, subscribe. We'll talk to you later.